Hello everyone, welcome back to Geography 13, Data Acquisition and Management. This is a short video introduction into geocoding as we begin Module 4. As we have been discussing, when we are working with vector data is composed of an attribute table. And within the attribute table, we have we have a matrix of rows and columns, which we also call attributes and features in GIS. So the column is an attribute and the row is what we refer to as a specific feature. Now, as part of the data that we put inside the attribute table, we know that vector data organizes objects into discrete approximations of real-world objects, and these are defined by their attributes. Part of the information that the attributes contain is also spatial information. And whenever we are geocoding, it will be very important for us to have some type of spatial information that can be a zip code, an address, coordinate, or other identifiable information. In geocoding specifically, we refer to the process of creating map features from addresses, place names, and similar information, and we refer to that as geocoding. Geocoding is also useful in crime analysis, citing building permits, planning public works, voting precincts, and following a map client base as well. Geocoding usually requires an address table, and these address tables are usually stored as a database file or as a text file. Geocoding requires an address locator, and one of the advantages of GIS software is that you can create an address locator with GIS. The address locator is the file that sets geocoding rules and tolerances. For example, it can help you control spelling errors. It can help you redefine the type of street that you're looking for, as well as direction prefixes within your address table. One of the reasons why we still work with geocoding is that while we work with geocoding addresses, and these are very useful, we still need to have human supervision because computers are not good at identifying formatted data or an example of data that is formatted in different ways. For example, here, South King Street, 100 South King Street could also be spelled as with an S period or an S without a period. Street can also be fully spelled out, or it can also be abbreviated. And then the subaddress could also be spelled out as well. Similarly, for the state, some people fully spell out states, others only use the state code. And so, although our address locator should be able to find most of the addresses that we enter into the GIS, there will be some that we'll have to find through human supervision. As part of the elements of an address, there are several which we should take into account. For example, we usually think about the house number, the street, and the city, state, and address. However, there are more components that we should take into account when planning an address locator. For example, in some cases, you will also have directional information in the prefix or in the suffix. The prefix, comes first. If you have a suffix, that's going to come at the end. Street types are usually also abbreviated. And if there is a building or a set of buildings, then you will also need to include a subaddress when you are planning your address table. Depending on the country where you are, addresses will look different. So if you work outside the United States, make sure that you know their address organization. For example, in Brazil, the street number comes after the name of the street. Similarly, in Germany. When you are working with an address locator, you will also be asked to choose an address locator style. And ArcGIS has several of these styles available throughout the world. But in the United States, we usually use dual ranges, which is based on a geometry line where the addresses are stored. And addresses basically range on both sides of the street. And all address elements are stored in one field within the data table. This is very useful to find a house on a specific side of the street. Geocoding also has a single house address locator, and here the address geometry is saved as a polygon or a point geometry. In terms of the dataset representation, each feature is going to correspond to a single house, so each polygon or area will correspond to a single house. And for the search parameters, you usually depend on the street number and the street name. This is very useful for finding a specific house or a parcel or a building footprint. Okay, these are the steps for geocoding. First, you need to build or obtain a reference data that has address information in point, line, or polygon geometry. Then you reference the data into an address locator and you build your address locator from that with the specific parameters that you choose. And then you perform an address matching, and then you confirm and match correct errors. These are the steps that you are going to follow in lab 4 of this week, and you will take some time at the end to correct and match errors as well. I hope that this has been a useful introduction into geocoding. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me on Canvas or through office hours. Thank you.